In this video, I'm going to review the Salsa Warroad, probably one of Salsa's most misunderstood bikes. How does it ride? How is it different from the Warbird? What do I like and dislike about it? Find out in this video. Welcome back, Pathless Peddlers, and if you're new to the channel, if you're into the non-competitive side of cycling, gravel, exploring, wearing floopy, flappy shirts, the Supple life, you have found your people, hit that subscribe button. And hey, if you enjoy these reviews, if they help you out at all, consider supporting the channel by joining us on Patreon or buying a patch or pin or sticker or even a shirt. The Salsa Warroad is Salsa's endurance road bike, and a few of the builds come stock with 650B, nice and supple. The model I reviewed was the Tiagra model, which weighs in on our scales at 22.5 pounds and has a MSRP of just under $2,400. The frame and fork are carbon. The group set is a modest but a workhorse Tiagra group set. Tiagra brifters, Tiagra cable actuated brakes. The front chain rings are a 50-34. In the rear, it has a large cassette ring of 34 tooth. At least you get 1-to-1, generally enough gears for climbing if you're riding unloaded. So basically a pretty solid build. The tires are 650B by 47 Horizon byways, so pretty ubiquitous. It does have some side knobs, but is generally, for most practical purposes, a road slick. The wheels are through axle, front and rear. It's got 3 water bottle cages, 2 bolt holes for a top tube bag, and interestingly, it has 3-pack mounts on the fork. So yes, you can take it quasi-road bike packing with an anything cage. On the rear, there are eyelets, but I don't think it's necessarily designed for a rear rack. The most you can probably get on there is some fenders. So if you plan to go road touring on this, you will have to use a rackless seat bag of some sort. So that's enough of the boring stuff. How does this bike actually ride? I've had for a couple weeks, and the first decent ride I did with the bike, we actually took it up to the local ski hill. So a fair amount of climbing. I think we climbed about 2,000 feet in 9 miles. So it's a really good test to see how well the bike climbed. And I have to say, that's probably my favorite thing about this bike. I think it's a combination of the shorter chainstay and the slightly higher bottom bracket. It just seemed really efficient seated while climbing and also standing while climbing. The front end turned over fairly quickly, so if you like to climb like Contador, it's not going to slow you down. The front end of the bike was nice and predictable, maybe a little bit more lively than the Warbird. I noticed hopping from the Warbird to the Warroad, it did take me a couple rides before I could ride on the Warroad no-handed. So just a hair on the livelier side. You wouldn't really notice unless you rode them back to back, and it's pretty easy to adapt to. On the rear of the bike, it's got a chainstay of 415, so fairly short. And I know some people are gonna fight me on this, but I think it's because of that, it just feels really quick. It feels as if when you put the energy into the pedals, the bike just goes. So overall, a fairly balanced bike, reminiscent of traditional endurance road bike geometry. One way to think of it is that it's kind of like a specialized Roubaix without the springy part and just chubbier tires. So if you've been wanting a 650B Roubaix without the future shock, then this is a bike for you. So what did I like and dislike about this bike? For one, it was just a blast to ride. It's always fun to have something quick and nimble, but supple at the same time. With the big tires, it really makes short work of pavement imperfections if you ride in the area with lots of chip seal, or if you hit that occasional dirt and gravel road. This is a perfect bike for that. Like I mentioned earlier, I love how it climbs. It climbs so well seated, and it climbs really well standing. I also like how this bike descended on paved descents. It's got great road geometry for that, and also the 650B tires just smooths out the tarmac. I also like that the bike has 3-pack mounts, so if you do want to use it as a light, quick, and fast road tour, you can do it. So it's a nice feature that you don't see in lots of endurance road bikes. So those are the things I like. What don't I like about this bike? Well, I loved how it climbed. I loved how it descended on pavement. It was not my favorite descender on a really rough and gravel road. I think the shorter wheelbase just made it feel really skittish and sketchy going down dry, dusty, and rocky descents. And I think that's where you see the real differentiation between the Warroad and the Warbird. That's where a bike like the Warbird really comes to its own, and you can see why a bike like the Warroad is generally better suited to tarmac. Not that you can't ride a gravel event with it, but it is optimized for a particular type of terrain. When the dirt road was nice and smooth and not too steep, it did great. But once things got really steep and really rocky and really sketchy, I had a little bit less confidence in the handling of the Warroad. Granted, given enough time, I could probably adapt, but I think that is an area where you see a lot of differentiation between, this kind of bike and a purpose-built gravel bike. So who's this bike for? If you like to do event rides, go on ride camps, and aren't necessarily racing, although I guess you could race with the bike, this bike is perfect for that. If you want a super light and fast road touring bike, then this bike is perfect for that. Other bikes it reminds me of, like I mentioned earlier, it's similar to a fat tired Roubaix, also reminiscent of the Surly Midnight Special. I think the big differentiation between the Midnight Special and the Warroad, aside from material and weight and things like that, is tire clearance. You can probably squeeze in a bigger tire on the Midnight Special, but on the Warroad, the 650B by 47, it's maxing it out. So if you think you want to put in a rowdier tire than the 650B by 47, this bike probably isn't for you. And if you're deciding between the Warbird and the Warroad, you really have to look at what kind of terrain you're riding in and also how you want the bike to respond. I think for a really long gravel event where you're going over 10 hours and you're gonna be tired and fatigued, the Warbird would still be the better option just because the front end is a little bit more chill and requires less micromanagement. But if you want something playful and lively for really spirited, 2 to 5 hour rides, then the Warroad is a great choice. So overall, a fun bike, a playful bike, all the road bike that a lot of people need or want. And I'm gonna be a little bit sad to send it back to Salsa if I'm honest. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're interested in more bike reviews, I've got a lot of cool gravel bikes I'm gonna be reviewing soon. The Otso Warrican in stainless steel. Crust Bikes is on its way. So lots of cool stuff. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and keep the supple side down.